Sit down in a chair right now. Stand back up without using your hands. Do it again, 5 times, and pay attention to the very last inch before your knees lock straight. That last inch where you push through to standing is the exact range your daily walk has been quietly letting you skip for years. And walking is the reason your legs feel steady on flat ground and betray you on the stairs. The exercise you trust most, the walk you've been told is the safest thing you can do, is training your legs to be good at one thing and blind to everything else. But here's where that answer falls apart if you stop at it. Walking isn't weakening your legs by damaging them, it's weakening them by satisfying you. And a leg that feels fine on the pavement can still crumple the first time it's asked to hold your entire weight on one foot at an odd angle, which is precisely what a fall is. So the real question isn't whether to keep walking, it's what walking never asks your legs to do, and why the muscle that keeps you upright when you stumble is the one that walking lets fall asleep. Let me be exact about what I mean, because walking weakens your legs is the kind of sentence that gets clipped and screamed about, and it deserves better. Walking is one of the best things you can do for your heart, your mood, your blood sugar, your joints. I walk. I'd never tell you to stop. What I'm telling you is narrower and stranger than that, and it took me a long time to see it clearly. Walking is a task your body has spent a lifetime learning to do with the least possible effort. Think about that. Your nervous system's entire goal on flat ground is efficiency. Burn as little energy as it can to move you forward. So it recruits the smallest number of muscle fibers that will get the job done at the lowest force in the narrowest range of motion. Over 10,000 repetitions a day, that efficiency becomes a groove. And the muscles you don't need for that groove, the ones that fire only when the ground tilts, when you catch yourself, when you rise from deep in a chair, they stop getting the invitation. So what actually happens to a muscle that stops getting the invitation? It doesn't shrink first. It goes quiet. This is the part almost nobody explains, and it's the whole story. Your muscles didn't weaken with age the way a rope frays. They went partly deaf. The signal from your brain still arrives at the muscle. The cell just stopped answering as loudly, because the specific pathway that carries fire hard right now hasn't been used in years. Neuroscientists call this the loss of motor unit recruitment. A motor unit being one nerve and the bundle of fibers it commands, like one foreman and his crew. You don't lose the crew all at once. You lose the foreman's phone number. And walking, for all its virtues, only ever calls the same 3 or 4 foremen. The big ones, the high-force crews that live in the front of your thigh and the side of your hip, the ones that turn a stumble into a recovery instead of a fall. They sit idle for years. Then, one day you step off a curb wrong. The ground asks for maximum force in 1/10 of a second, and there's no one on the line. Here's a number that matters more than any other in this whole conversation. Between the ages of 30 and 80, the average person loses somewhere near 40% of their muscle mass. But they lose their fast-twitch fibers, the explosive ones, at nearly twice the rate of the slow, steady ones. Walking runs entirely on slow twitch. So the fibers walking protects are the ones that were fading slowest anyway, and the fibers that fade fastest are exactly the ones walking never touches. You've been guarding the fortress that wasn't under attack. I want to give you a picture you can hold, because a picture is the only way this stays with you past tonight. Imagine a long brick wall being maintained by 2 crews. One crew is small, patient, tireless. They do the endless light-pointing work, the daily upkeep, and they never stop. That's your slow-twitch fibers, and that's the crew walking keeps employed. The second crew is huge, powerful, and expensive to call out. They only come when a section of wall is about to collapse and needs to be held up by main strength in the next few seconds. That's your fast twitch fibers. Now, if you never once call the second crew for 20 years, what do you think happens? They don't just get slow. They forget the road to your house, the numbers disconnected, and the day the wall actually starts to go, you make the call and nothing comes. So how do you get the number back? This is where it turns hopeful and fast, because the news here is genuinely good. That second crew isn't gone. In people in their 70s and 80s, the fast twitch fibers are still physically present in the muscle. They've been shown to still be there in biopsy after biopsy. They're not dead, they're dormant. And dormant is a completely different problem than dead. Dead you can't fix. Dormant you can wake up in weeks. Let me ask the harder question though, before I give you the drill. Because if you do this without understanding it, you'll do it the gentle way. And the gentle way does nothing. Why would slow, comfortable movement fail to wake a sleeping muscle? when it feels like exercise. Because the wake-up signal isn't effort over time, it's intensity over an instant. Your fast twitch fibers are recruited by one thing only: the demand for high force, fast. Not high force slowly. Not moderate force repeatedly. The nervous system recruits motor units in a fixed order, smallest first. It's called the size principle. Henneman's size principle, named for the researcher who mapped it in the 1960s. The big units only get called when the small ones can't meet the demand, which means you have to create a demand the small crew genuinely cannot handle. And a stroll, by design, never does. Now the drill. It's built from the sit to stand, the same motion you did at the start of this, and I'm going to describe it precisely enough that you can do it the moment you're near a chair, because a protocol you can't perform from listening is worthless. Find a sturdy chair, one that won't slide, with a firm seat, a dining chair, not a soft armchair. Sit toward the front of it, feet flat, roughly shoulder-width apart, heels pulled back slightly so they're just behind your knees. Cross your arms over your chest so you can't cheat with them. Now here's the entire secret, the one detail that separates a real drill from a pointless one. You're going to stand up as fast as you safely can. Explode up. Not a gentle rise, a fast, deliberate push through the floor, driving through your heels until your hips are fully open and your knees are straight, and you've squeezed everything at the top for 1 full second. That speed is the signal. That's the phone call to the big crew. Then, and this is the second half almost everyone gets wrong, you come back down slow. Take 3 full seconds to lower yourself, controlling every inch, resisting gravity the whole way, until you just kiss the seat. Don't drop. Don't rest your full weight and relax. Touch and go again. Fast up, slow down. That's 1 repetition. Do 5 of them. Just 5, but 5 real ones, 5 that leave your thighs genuinely working by the last one. Rest a full minute, then do 5 more. 2 rounds, 10 total, and you're done. 3 days a week, never 2 days in a row, because the waking up happens in the recovery, not in the drill itself. If even that one detail, fast up, slow down, was new to you, hit like right now. It's the single thing that turns a chair exercise from theater into training. And it's the only signal that tells the algorithm to put this in front of the next person who's been doing sit-to-stands, slowly, and wondering why nothing changed. Now watch what that fast stand-up actually does inside your leg, because the picture explains why it works when walking doesn't. When you rise slowly, your nervous system has time to do the whole thing with the small, patient crew. It spreads the load out, calls a few extra slow units, and gets you up without ever needing the big ones. But when you demand speed, there is no time to spread the load. The small crew physically cannot contract fast enough to generate the force in the window available. So the nervous system does the only thing it can. It reaches past them and calls the fast units directly. Speed is the thing that forces recruitment, not weight. Not reps, speed. And this is why I get quietly irritated when I see this movement taught as a slow, careful, both hands on the armrests affair for older adults. I understand the caution, I do. But a slow sit to stand with your arms helping is training the exact crew that already works, while carefully avoiding the crew you actually need. It's the treadmill of chair exercises. Safe, satisfying, and pointed at the wrong target. Let me hand you a sensation you've almost certainly had and never explained. You're walking, feeling fine, legs strong. Then you reach a flight of stairs, and by the 3rd or 4th step there's a specific heaviness in the front of your thighs that the flat ground never produced, a kind of burning surprise like your legs were caught unprepared. If you felt that, that's this. That's the flat ground groove meeting a demand it never trained for. The stairs are asking for force and speed together, and the crew that provides it hasn't been called in months. Here's another one. Getting out of a low car seat or up off the floor after you've been down there with a grandchild, and there's a half second where you're not sure you're going to make it, where you have to rock or grab something. That half second isn't weakness in the way you fear. It's a recruitment delay. The signal to fire hard goes out, and the big units are slow to answer because they're out of practice. Wake them up, and that half second shrinks. I've watched it shrink in people in a matter of weeks. Let me borrow from somewhere completely outside the body for a second, because it makes this click. In electrical engineering, there's a concept called inrush current, the surge of power a motor demands in the first instant it starts, far higher than what it needs to keep running. A motor at steady speed sips power. A motor starting from dead stop gulps it. Your legs are the same machine. Cruising on flat ground is the steady state, low efficient draw. Rising fast from a chair, catching a stumble, taking a stair two at a time, that's Inrush. And a body that only ever runs at steady state has never built the capacity to deliver the surge. Walking trains the cruise. Nothing about walking trains the inrush. The fall happens in the inrush moment, every single time. If that just reframed why your strong walking legs still feel unreliable on stairs, and there's a deeper layer coming, one about why this shows up in your balance and not just your strength, subscribe now, because that part is a few minutes away, and it's the reason I put this together instead of just telling you to do squats. So let's go to that deeper layer, because strength is only half of what walking quietly lets slide. The other half is your ability to correct. Here's a question worth sitting with. Why do so many falls happen not from tripping, but from a stumble that a younger body would have caught easily and simply didn't? The answer lives in a system most people have never heard named: the stretch reflex, and specifically the speed of the muscle spindle response. Inside every muscle are tiny sensors called muscle spindles. Think of them as stretch alarms, wired to detect not just how far a muscle is stretching, but how fast. When you stumble, a muscle in your leg gets stretched suddenly and violently, and that alarm is supposed to fire back a lightning-fast contraction to catch you, before your conscious brain even knows anything happened. That whole loop, stretch, alarm, catch, is supposed to run in well under 1/10 of a second. But that reflex is a fast twitch event. It depends on the same explosive fibers walking never recruits. Train only slow movement for 20 years, and the alarm still rings. But the crew that's supposed to answer it is the disconnected one. The stumble happens, the signal fires, and the catch arrives a fraction of a second too late. That fraction of a second is the difference between a wobble and the floor. This is the part that reframed everything for me, and I'll be honest about how I got here. For years I gave people balance exercises. Stand on one leg, walk heel to toe, the standard set. And I treated balance as a separate skill from strength. It isn't. A huge share of what we call poor balance in the legs isn't the inner ear at all. It's a strength and speed problem wearing a balance costume. You can't catch yourself with a muscle that answers slowly, no matter how good your sense of where you are in space. I spent a long time drilling the sensor and ignoring the responder. I had it backwards. Now I want to be straight with you about a number, because trust matters more than a dramatic figure. You'll see it said that fast explosive strength training cuts fall risk by half, or that power training is dramatically more protective than regular strength work. The direction of that is real. Power, meaning force times speed, does predict fall recovery better than raw strength does. And the research on this is solid. But the specific cuts falls in half figure gets stretched well past what any single study actually found. The real effect sizes are more modest and vary a lot by who's being studied. I'd rather you trust the mechanism, which is rock solid, than a headline number that someone inflated in the retelling. The mechanism doesn't need exaggerating. There's genuine debate here too, and you should know it exists. Some physiotherapists are cautious about fast explosive movement in older adults, worried about joint load and injury, and they're not wrong to be careful. Form matters and starting speed should be built gradually, not on day one. Others argue the caution has gone too far and left a generation training only the slow, useless for catching yourself pathway. Depending on who you ask, this is either a safety issue or a wasted opportunity. The honest answer sits in the middle. Build the speed carefully, but build it because the alternative is training for a demand your life will never actually make of you. Let me give you one more physical model, because I want the difference between strength and power to be something you can feel rather than define. Picture two people pushing a stalled car. One is enormously strong but pushes slowly and steadily. The car inches forward. The other is less strong but shoves hard and fast in a single burst. The car lurches. Now imagine the ground as your body catching a stumble. You don't get a slow, steady push. You get one instant to lurch the car forward, or it rolls back over you. Strength is the steady pusher, power is the lurcher. Walking builds the steady pusher and never once builds the lurcher. And every fall you'll ever nearly have is a lurcher's job. So here's how the whole thing fits. In one line you could type into a comment, walking trains your legs to move you, not to save you. And the fast stand-up trains the crew that saves you. Let me name the systems we've walked through, so you have the real words for them and can go read further if you want to. The size principle, which governs the order your muscles get recruited. Motor unit recruitment, the loss of which explains why quiet muscles aren't dead muscles. Fast twitch fiber selective loss, the reason age hits your power before your endurance. The muscle spindle and its stretch reflex, the alarm system that catches your stumbles. And muscular power, force multiplied by speed, the single quality that predicts whether you recover from a slip or don't. Those five, not walking, are what actually decide how steady you are at 75. One thing I'd genuinely like to know, and only you can answer it. Try the sit to stand test. 5 reps, no hands, and notice whether that last inch before standing feels solid or shaky. Then tell me in the comments which it was, and roughly how old you are, be honest. I want to see where the line really falls, because I suspect it's later than most people fear, and the shakiness is more about disuse than age. Let me leave you with the correction I most want you to make, because it's small and it costs nothing. You don't have to stop walking. Keep every step. Just stop believing the walk is doing the whole job. Add 10 fast stand-ups, 3 days a week, into the life you already live. Waiting for the kettle, during a commercial, before you sit down to a meal. That's it. You're not adding an hour at a gym. You're making one phone call to a crew that's been waiting 20 years to be needed again. And if this changed how you think about your own legs, if you've been walking a little more carefully each year and quietly wondering why the confidence keeps leaking out anyway, send it to the person you first pictured when I described that half second of doubt getting out of a low chair. They're doing everything right. They just haven't been told that the safest exercise they trust was never training the thing that keeps them standing. Fast up, slow down, 10 a day. Your legs remember. You just have to call.